The chapter starts out with an introduction to the payment systems for Medicare. The history of Medicare payments used to be that they would pay retrospectively. They would pay a couple of times a year, whether it be quarterly, bi-monthly, what have you, but that was costing Medicare a lot of money. So I think in the 60s, they would spend $3 billion a year on healthcare. But by the 80s, they were up to like 37 billion. So they were looking a way to control cost, and that is how they came up with the new prospective payment system. And our book goes into, this chapter goes into a good amount of information, but hopefully easy to learn. If you have any questions about if any of this does not make sense, outreach me and I will help you through it because I read it myself. So the chapter goes into the acute care prospective payment system, what they do in acute care settings, how they come up with figures, with the calculations, how do they bill, how do they pay, and there's different classification systems with the DRGs that we've talked about before. Inpatient hospital system payments, there's different payment systems and billing for each category. The chapter also goes into a disproportionate share adjustment. That is a benefit for hospitals that see a certain percentage, I think it's 15%, at least 15% of their patient population is low income. If I'm not mistaken, WillMed in Wilson is one of those hospitals. I'm pretty sure WakeMed in Raleigh is also. We serve everybody. We do not turn anybody away. No matter what the income status is, health insurance status, that sort of thing. So those type of entities, the big hospitals like WillMed, WakeMed, they get a bonus, if you will, or a percentage higher in payment as a thank you for taking care of those type of patients. There's an indirect medical education credit also, and I believe WillMed is a teaching hospital also. For sure, WakeMed is UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, Pitt down in where East Carolina is. So all those hospitals are getting a bonus or a percentage higher in their payments too for, in return, teaching people about medicine, healthcare. There's calculations for all those rates that you get the bonuses for, the incentives. There's the chapter goes into hospital wage indexes, high cost outliers with billing and payment, cost to charge ratios. It's important to know that the covered charges for a case to determine whether the cost of a case exceeds the fixed loss outlier threshold. That's the CCR. Calculations of charges is discussed in this chapter, and there is, you do not have to memorize this, but there is an excellent exhibit 7.1 starting on page 122 that go in exhibit 7.2 on the next page. It goes into calculating thresholds, tables of capital values, calculations. I'm not going to hold you to that type of information, but definitely review that. That's nowhere on the quiz or the test, I believe. I will look. And of course, if it does end up there, let me know. But this is just a great resource, not anything you have to memorize. So I'm on page 126 now. Transfer cases for billing, that's important to know too, because there's a lot of incentives and there's a lot of do's and don'ts with transfer cases. Medicare only wants to pay, they want to avoid paying the same amount for two facilities. So documenting, coding, and billing is very important when you're transferring patients. And there's a difference between type 1 and type 2. I'm going to keep on flipping. So billing of transplant services, that's different than transfer types. The section I just mentioned was transfers, but now I'm on page 129 with the transplant types. So there's differences, little unique things to know about kidney transplants, heart transplants, whether our Medicare covers artificial hearts, whether they cover valve replacement. What does Medicare cover? That's included in this paragraph or chapter. Liver transplants are in here. Kidney and pancreas transplants are in here, and there's some information to know if a patient does have both a kidney and a pancreas transplant at one time, they can. And if they do, and if they're billed, there's certain criteria. that has to be documented for the billing and the payment to go through by Medicare. If any of this documentation or billing or coding is not correct, Medicare can and they will deny the claim. Can you imagine a hospital having to eat that cost? There would be no recovering that money. So this is why billing and coding and learning about healthcare finance is so important, because I can't imagine the price tag on a pancreas and kidney transplant, and for some medical billing error to prevent the hospital from receiving monies. That, yeah, is critical to know how to do it and what to do. Inpatient rehab facilities is the next part of this chapter. Again, a lot of information there, and they're unique. They're not an acute setting like a hospital. They are specific. They treat specific patients. The chapter then goes into comorbidities, IRF, qualifications, data collection, reporting, and then the IRF payment calculation. Again, lots of calculations. Inpatient facility prospective payment systems in here. Budget neutrality, the structure, another comorbidity adjustment is mentioned, page 134. Age adjustment, then we've got, this chapter is full of information. Don't let it overwhelm you. Again, if you need to reach out to me, certainly do so. Health insurance prospective payment system, long-term care payment system. So lots of information again. Short stay outliers, interrupted stays, high cost outliers, and other adjustments. And then a good conclusion. So that's chapter 7. Again, a lot of information. Take a look at the quiz. If you have any questions coming off of the quiz, let me know.